They have chickens, okay, and they raise eggs, and they go in and I don't want fresh, as terrible as that sounds. But what did you people expect?
I know.
The eggs are sky high if they're not stolen. There's some places where they were stolen. You can't even get them if you had the money. Did I even answer the question? This whole thing is chaos, 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 chaos. We're like hamsters on a wheel.
Exactly, just trying to keep our head above wheel, I guess. I'm bad with metaphors. Yeah, I agree too. Well, I like raw eggs. I like raw everything because I don't feel that we should be killing parasites and viruses. I think that they deserve a chance to live too. But anyway, I'm gonna close on this. And I previewed this a couple weeks ago when I said the first term of Trump, we were also horrified by what he was doing, that we were just focused on blocking him and we had no expectations for him because he was an illegitimate president. That's largely true now, but no, I have expectations, okay? You've had 1 month and your record blows. It automatically blows. And this is not a game. Inflation going up hurts people. You know how I know that? Because you said it over and over for the last couple of years. In fact, you won by blaming Biden for the inflation, which never really made total sense, but he was president. Okay, now you're president, and I have expectations. I demand that you get control of this. I demand that you alleviate the suffering that you're leading to for tens of millions of American households. American households who already were suffering and cannot afford to pay a constant daily Trump tax on everything they buy as you make it worse and worse. And this is how bad it is. When you made temporary deals for most of your tariffs, they might still go into effect in a month or two. And that will undoubtedly make things worse. So I demand that you get off your ass and do your goddamn job and get these prices down. And if you can't, then we need to boot your ass out of there. We need to boot the Republicans out of the Senate and the House because we expect that they do something. Now, most of them are asleep and you're utterly incompetent. But eventually the check is gonna come due, okay? And what brought you into office should necessarily get your ass kicked out of office, okay? We're doing things different this time. I expect more, I'm not gonna get it, but when I don't, then that's it for you. Get the hell out of office and let someone come in who's actually gonna solve problems rather than making them worse. Now, with that said, unfortunately, we don't have any more time. I wish that we did.
Love it.
We'll definitely see you next Wednesday, Sharon, but thank you for making it a Big News Wednesday.
No, thank you for that rousing closing speech. Day one, he told us. I love it.
Day one. What happened to day one? Now Biden inflation up. Did he promise, when I get in day one, I'm gonna be blaming Biden for all the problems I cause? It's not what he said. That commercial would have sucked. But anyway, thank you. And thank you everybody for watching. Tomorrow, Francesca will be here. Hopefully we're gonna have a lot of fun. For now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey, good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today, breaking down news of the day, none other than Yasmin Aliya Khan, Rebel HQ contributor, all-star, and host of the Global Thread podcast. Always fascinating to have her analysis. Top story of the day, hell of a thing. This story is going to make your blood boil. Cops decided to tase and punch a man suffering a seizure at the time for not complying. Here it is.
Let's go. What are you doing? Get out of the car, dude. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Hey. Stop resisting, bro. Let's go. Let's get out of the car. You're going to get tased. You're about to get tased, dude. We want to help you, but do not fight us. All right. You will get ripped out of this car. Yes, sir. We're not playing you. Get out of the car. Get up. Yes, get out. You're about to get tased, dude. I'm going to get out. Get out then. He's slippery. Where we going? Let's go. Get out of the car. You're about to get tased, dude. Bro, let me get on. Ow! Get out of the car! Dude. Stop fighting! Dude, do not kick. Stop! Stop fighting! Stop fighting! Taser 7. Taser deployed. Still fighting.
Put it up full mass. California, a new lawsuit that claims Hercules cops who were well aware that Mr. Jack Bruce had crashed his car after suffering an epileptic seizure, became enraged when during the seizure, he did not respond to their commands to step out of the car as he went in and out of consciousness. So they decided to taser him repeatedly while punching his face and pulling his hair. Talk about inhumane. Bruce, a tradesman in Local 38 of the plumbers, steam fitters, HVAC and refrigeration union, was driving on Refugio Valley after visiting his grandmother. This happened on April 1st, 2024. He suffered a grand mal seizure for the first time in his life, causing him to lose consciousness and drive down an embankment off the side of the road. One witness ran down the embankment to help him, a good Samaritan, while another witness called 911 and did what? Informed the dispatcher that the man appeared to have suffered a seizure. Here we are. You have an individual in a bona fide health crisis, could have easily been worse. Cops respond, first responders get there. They are supposed to be there to provide aid and assistance. But instead, they make his medical condition significantly worse than before they arrived, according to the lawsuit. The other witness called 911 and expressly told the 911 operator that the plaintiff was convulsing and apparently unresponsive as his vehicle left the road and that he appeared to be having a seizure. The fact that the plaintiff was suffering a seizure was conveyed to the defendant officers both through dispatch communications and the CAD system, known as the CAD system. At 1:07 p.m., defendant Garcia entered the back of the plaintiff's vehicle, leaned forward and attempted to communicate with plaintiff. No success. Plaintiff was exhibiting and continued to exhibit symptoms of the postictal phase of the seizure. Initially, he appeared to be asleep, out of consciousness. Eventually, he recovered minimum consciousness, but did not appear to understand what had happened or even where he was. Now, remember, all of these officers have been through basic training. They've been through their basic training, which always allows for the training of what? What happens when you encounter someone in a seizure, experiencing such. They cannot fall back on, well, dispatch did not inform us, because there's record of dispatch telling them repeatedly what was told to the 911 operator. There's more. Body cam shows the cops were well aware he had suffered a seizure moments before or moments after responding to the scene. Quote, "Hey, Goldstein, you want to wait for fire to try to get him out?" Garcia posed the question, referring to the paramedics who were already on their way to the scene. Quote, "If he's having a seizure, just let him be," Goldstein responded. But minutes later, they were tasering and punching and abusing him for not complying with their orders, even though it was obvious he was barely conscious. Then, after learning the man, Jack Bruce, was the son of an inspector, that means detective, investigator, in the district attorney's office of their own county, Contra Costa County, the city police officers then attempted to fabricate a story that they had suspected the man of being high on drugs. They did this in order to justify their insane behavior. But when they could find no evidence in the car of drug use, they became frustrated with one of the cops turning off the audio on his body camera without any valid reason at all. There's more. He was then transported to a hospital. Blood tests found no drugs of alcohol in Bruce's system. He had a trace amount of marijuana and a sedative that was administered by the paramedics in the ambulance. Doctors at another hospital administered another test to measure the signals of his brain, revealing that, yes, he did, in fact, have abnormalities consistent with epilepsy. He has since experienced several more seizures and has been prescribed anti-seizure medication, according to the claim. Now, the reason why this is all in a lawsuit is because it goes directly to the formation of the incident and his state of mind. His state of mind was simply that of a man who was having a seizure, as reported by the civilian who had absolutely no police training, who had no first responder training, but was able to have enough humanity in them to articulate that the man was suffering a seizure. 911 gets it. They receive it on face value. There's a man in a medical crisis. Police arrive first, even though paramedics are on the way. The police just happened to be the first ones to get there. Understand, this was a medical call. Police get there first, but it's a medical call. And instead of doing like the first officer said, and that's simply waiting on the damn medics, waiting on the paramedics, waiting on those that are trained to assist individuals who are going through a seizure, instead of doing that, they decide to show you, me, and the world who and what they really are. Feckless cowards. Bullying a man who can barely remain conscious. Abusing a man who barely knows what's happening to his body. Last week, Bruce filed a federal lawsuit against the city police department in the San Francisco Bay Area, accusing the agency of false arrest, excessive force, battery, negligence emotional distress, as well as violating the Americans with Disabilities Act because they chose to abuse him rather than help him after he experienced the seizure. Listed as defendants in the lawsuit, the city police officers, Angel Garcia, Michael Thompson, Joshua Goldstein, as well as the entire city of Hercules, along with multiple John Does, which would be the other officers and paramedics on the scene whose names have not yet been publicized. I'll put this picture up again. It is so damn sad that instead of these officers at least listening to Goldstein, Joshua Goldstein, or perhaps listening to the 911 dispatcher and waiting for the ambulance, or simply just say, let the guy have a seizure. We're not trained in this. We'll wait for the paramedics, obviously, but let's just try to keep him safe in the meantime. Instead of anybody having that kind of heart. You see, training doesn't teach that. The reason why training won't help you is because people with absolutely no training knew what to do better than the cops. So training isn't the issue here. Can't be. We're going to stay on top of this story. Obviously, it will have development soon. Yasmin, thoughts here?
Yeah, this is why it's so hard for people to respect the authority of cops. Maybe this is why people think they have such fragile egos. And when those egos get bruised, people physically suffer for it. These cops knew what was going on and they still chose to respond the way that they did. Cops are supposed to be the guys that we call whenever there's some kind of incident that requires assistance, whether that's a crime or just a situation like this one where there is a health crisis that needs to be managed. They could have and should have, helped get that man to an ambulance, wait for the paramedics to get there. They should have helped clear his car from the scene. They should have managed the situation, not make it worse, which is exactly what they did. Also, the fact that non-complying or not complying is an offense has always bothered me. I've always been uncomfortable with that because I'm not just one to follow directions from strangers. Or maybe because I don't trust the idea that cops can just tell someone to do something, whether it's humane or ethical or necessary or legal. And if the person doesn't do it, then they're now guilty of resisting or not complying. The cops get a lot of leeway on things where I personally think they need to have tighter controls. And people wouldn't have issues with their leeway if they didn't constantly abuse the powers and protections that have already been granted to them due to the dangerous nature of the job that they chose to do. And that's the other thing. No one is forced to become a cop. They are not an oppressed group of people. They can take off that uniform at any time and no one would even know that they're cops. No one would be able to discriminate against them for being cops once they're out of uniform. But so many of the people who are victimized and discriminated against by cops don't just get to take off or remove who they are from their bodies. Cops are people who sought those police powers and protections for themselves in the first place. And we should always, always be skeptical of people who seek that level of authority over others.
Very well said. Naturally, we will follow the story, bring you updates as they come. All right, we have an update. Hell of a thing. Uncovered Lively interview plays into Baldoni's accusations. Here it is.
I would show up on a set. I knew that they just wanted me to show up and look cute and stand on a little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say. But I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character. And sometimes I had directors or producers or writers who would welcome that and invite that once they saw that I was able to offer that. And sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor. Yet when I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're like, you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do. And so it was a really strange position to be in because I felt like I don't want to just be an actor. I want to have more authorship.
The story has some twists and turns. Put it up full mass. I will give you as much background as possible. So Blake Lively revealed her plan to assume creative control after she obtains a gig. She lands a gig, and This has now shed new light on the legal feud between Justin Baldoni and Lively. So Blake says her motive sometimes rubs folks the wrong way to the point where she even asked herself, am I the blank hole? End quote. Blake Lively allegedly skipped Super Bowl 2025 after Taylor Swift felt used by her in the Justin Baldoni lawsuit. The legal rep recently suggested that the Grammy winner could be deposed. Why? Because she was actually present for a meeting mentioned in the Jane the Virgin alum's $400 million lawsuit against Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds. So a source exclusively told Page 6 last Thursday, quote, Taylor really wishes Blake hadn't dragged her into this whole situation. I mean, what are friends for? There's more. So the pair, quote, have been friends for years, and Taylor cherishes genuine friendships, but she can't help but feel at this point used. The insider added, we also heard that Swift, quote, wants to keep out of this drama as much as possible. I just got to say this for the record. Taylor Swift is a remarkable human being. Like a music or not, that's on you. She's a genuine soul. Just my opinion. Put it up for man. Here we go. Blake Lively facing another lawsuit in her ongoing, it ends with us, legal battle with co-star Justin Baldoni. This time from a publicist that she named in the complaint. She filed with the California Civil Rights Department on Tuesday, 4th of February. Jed Wallace of the Texas-based crisis management firm Street Relations, Inc., sued Lively, 37, alleging defamation. This came after Lively filed a petition on January 21st requesting a deposition, that is sworn oath testimony, from Wallace, which was then rescinded Tuesday according to Wallace's lawsuit. In Lively's December civil rights complaint, her lawyers alleged that Wallace was hired by Baldoni's PR team to assist in the alleged smear campaign, claiming he, quote, weaponized a digital army around the country from New York to Los Angeles to create, seed, and promote content that appeared to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forums. Wallace's lawyers claim in the new lawsuit that her recent petition, quote, conceded that Lively has no facts supporting the allegations she made against Wallace and Street in the precursor, which, quote, made headlines around the world, as she now apparently under the threat of sanctions from one of the plaintiff's attorneys sought to, quote, investigate the scope of Mr. Wallace's conduct, end quote. In response to the lawsuit, Lively's legal team said in the statement, quote, another day, another state, another 9-figure lawsuit seeking to sue Ms. Lively into oblivion for speaking out against sexual harassment and retaliation. So lawyers from both sides came face to face in court for the first time on Monday, the 3rd of February, for a pretrial conference where the judge warned them to refrain from litigating the case in the public. The trial is currently scheduled for March 2026. So I'm glad I got Yasmin here to make sense of this mess. Yasmin, what say you?
Okay, where to start with all of this? Firstly, I suppose we should start with the fact that none of this has been tried in court. I believe the court date is set to be, like a year from now, like next March or something like that. So we'll be hearing about this for a lot longer, it seems. All of the allegations are allegations at this point, but it seems that both parties are currently fighting to win the PR battle. And there are so many angles and aspects to this story. There are entire hours and hours and hours of podcasts just dissecting all of this. Sorry, I can't get into all of that now, obviously. I haven't seen the movie either, but I have been keeping up with the story pretty closely. When Blake Lively first came out with her accusations against Justin Baldoni, saying that he sexually harassed her on the set of the movie It Ends With Us, people were obviously sympathetic towards her. People wanted to support her. People started to look at Justin Baldoni differently. And granted, he wasn't even a very well-known actor prior to all of this. I knew about him just because I happened to watch Jane the Virgin, but he wasn't a household name the way that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift are. But the only thing worse than a man who sexually harasses a woman is a woman who lies about a man who has sexually harassed her. And when Justin Baldoni started to fight back against the accusations that were lobbed against him, public opinion started to shift a little bit. And the difference was Justin Baldoni, he came with a lot of receipts. He built an entire website full of text messages and voice memos and emails. He came with all of the receipts. He had video, because he was a director of this film. So he was filming everything. They had all the dailies. And Blake Lively, she had none of that. A lot of her accusations, she seemed unaware that Justin Baldoni had footage that disproved a lot of what she was trying to say. And all of this was after Justin Baldoni's production company, which was producing the movie, had already lost money and contracts. I believe it was like 4 contracts he lost. This was after Baldoni lost his podcast. He had to give back awards he had gotten and so much more. So then the question became, why would Blake Lively lie or embellish something like this? As the story started to develop, it became clear that while they were filming, Blake Lively, who was hired as an actress, just as an actress, kept trying to take over the movie. Now, keep in mind, by the time she was hired, the production company, Wayfarer Production Company, they had already gotten all the investors. They had done all the work. They had hired everybody that needed to be hired. They had done all the legwork. Justin Baldoni was the one who secured the rights to the book from the author, Colleen Hoover, and he got the permission to make the movie. He's the one who cast Blake Lively as an actress to star in the film. All these things. Blake Lively turns up to set after all of these things are in place, and then she seemed to systematically try to take it over. She fired the costume director, and she used her own wardrobe. The outfits in the movie are insane, like unbelievably bad, right? They're very, very bad. They also don't suit the character, but she fired the costume director, used a lot of her own clothes and her friend's clothes, and she inflated the budget for the costuming department, which is, you know, if she wanted to be a producer, you would be very aware of how that works as far as budget goes. So a lot of different things like that. She wanted to rewrite portions of the script. She wanted to see dailies of everything. She wanted to edit the film herself, and usually that's the director gets to do that, the director's cut. And she wanted to do it. That's the version that got released, by the way, is Blake Lively's edit of the film. So Justin Baldoni didn't even get to edit his own film that he had worked so hard on. So there's a lot of that, a lot of speculation as to why she was behaving the way she did and why she was like, she even threatened to not promote the movie if they didn't release her edit, things like that. So then when that clip came out that we saw at the start of the story, where she was saying, you know, I act very nice and I tell them, oh yes, I'm so excited to be a part of your film and to look pretty and, you know, be an actress. But then I get in there and then I try to do all this other stuff. And so it feels like a rug pull. That is exactly what she was being accused of doing to Justin Baldoni. And that was before this clip even resurfaced. So that's why this is kind of like, you know, the ace in the hole that that's exactly what she was doing. She told us that she does this. There's
Amazing.
more, but I'll stop
there.
there.
And obviously that comment, which is an extrajudicial comment, it can be used in the court of law. It's not hearsay when the individual is recorded saying it, and it goes to the nature of the crime or the civil offense being alleged. All right, I'm sure updates will come. Okay, well, they messed around and found out. Ohio residents expelled white supremacists from their town. And I mean in a hell of a way. Put it up full mass here. I knew something like this was going to happen eventually. Residents of a historically Black community in Ohio, well, they forced neo-Nazi demonstrators to retreat from a highway overpass where they hurled racial slurs and waved large flags with swastikas. The confrontation, which took place earlier this month, occurred near Lincoln Heights, Ohio, not far from Cincinnati. About a dozen neo-Nazis dressed in black with red face masks, matching those worn in a similar demonstration in Columbus, Ohio last fall, were captured on traffic cameras, waving swastikas, waving their flags, celebrating their racism. They also fastened red swastika banners on the overpass fence and displayed a sign reading, quote, "America for the white man," according to photos shared with CNN. Footage circulating online shows people approaching the demonstrators as police stood between them. Within moments of the confrontation, the neo-Nazis retreated, hastily jumping into a U-Haul box truck, fleeing the scene. Law enforcement at the scene were also seen ushering the demonstrators into the U-Haul truck and signaling them, "You need to get up out of here." The Vision Way overpass links Avondale to Lincoln Heights, the first all-black self-governing city north of the Mason-Dixon line, according to the Cincinnati Preservation Association. Avondale is just 2 miles from Reading, once a sundown town where local laws barred black people and other people of color from being out after sunset to deter them from actually living there. Quote, "We are underestimating the dangers of the police, not even attempting to identify them. Who are they trying to protect? Because it isn't us," local resident Kashara Talbert told CNN after confronting the protesters. Quote, "It could be another Hitler behind those masks. It could be a school shooter behind those masks." The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office quickly stepped in before the confrontation could escalate, quote, and make sure that no one was hurt, quote, end quote, the sheriff said, Sheriff McGuffey. Lincoln Heights residents are understandably upset, the statement read. Quote, "We continue to work with community and emphasize that there's no place for hate in Hamilton County." But real action was never taken by law enforcement. Let's put it up. So Cincinnati mayor condemned the incident in a statement on X, calling the display of swastikas in Avondale shocking and disgusting. Despite the vocal condemnations of hate, residents expressed frustration with public officials and law enforcement, saying the lack of official action forced them to take matters into their own hands. Since there were no consequences, Talbot feared the racist demonstrators would feel emboldened as law enforcement had left the scene without as much as issuing a warning, signaling that racism and hate would be tolerated in Hamilton County. So what happened? The community rose up after the police refused to take action. Teresa Brooks, a Lincoln Heights resident, told CNN one of the white demonstrators called her an N-word, B-word, according to the confrontation. However, she said police dismissed concerns that she felt threatened, citing the neo-Nazis, quote, right to free speech. So dozens of residents, including Ms. Talbot, quickly gathered after photos and videos of the neo-Nazi demonstration spread on Facebook. They confronted the group, seized one of their flags. In other words, they took it. And then they set their flag on fire. Now, I want you to just see the flag for a moment. Now, all these big, bad, racist, bigot neo-Nazis, they stepped up into a place called Lincoln Heights. They got the flag snatched from them, burned, and also fled the scene. This is what happens when they attempted to take that mess to a community that believes in governing self. The police had the opportunity to do the right thing because they were making a public disturbance. Their aggressive and threatening language is illegal. And I'm sure you could have found one or two trespassing clauses in order to get them to move because none of them applied for a parade permit. But the cops did not. So the community decided to do exactly what they needed to do. So as residents confronted these neo-Nazis, the group, who Talbot said were armed, hurled the N-word at them. A Facebook video shared by an unknown account in obtained by local community members appeared to show the white demonstrators using the N-word and other slurs as residents approached to confront them. Quote, "Look at the N-words coming," end quote. One demonstrator, and they all wear masks, says, as others joined in the racial slur. Another said, quote, "The cops are going to give us an escort to Freddie's car," and another replied, "F yeah." Tabor said the tense confrontation lasted only minutes before the racist demonstrators fled in their customary U-Haul. The next day, residents and neighbors returned to the overpass holding signs of solidarity, including one that read, "My father fought Nazis and so will I." As they stood in solidarity, 3 demonstrators' cars had their rear windshield shattered by unknown perpetrators, according to Kim LaChance, whose car was among them. What's happening? It's a very beautiful thing that's happening, actually, if you can understand the beauty in it. Yes, you have evil, racism, bigotry. You have these individuals who are polarized to the negative, and they're trying to spread their hate, but their hate was met with love. Yes, tough love, but love nonetheless. Love for self, love for community, love for the defense of their community, and also love for their children and their children's children. We're talking about multi-generational dynamics. It is unfortunate we are at this place in American society where polarization seems to be the new end thing. It seems to be sexy to some. But see, the polarization reminds us of why balance is required. This polarization is happening because those individuals realize they are at the end of their journey. This ideology of racism, this polarization of bigotry is coming to an end. And so they are pushing full press, but it won't work. Yes, thoughts here.
Yeah, one of the more fascinating things about white supremacists is their audacity. But I guess that audacity, it kind of makes sense because they really believe that they are better than everyone else just because their skin is white. They really believe that they should be in charge of everything and everyone, regardless of like their level of education, regardless of any kind of expertise they might have at work or in leadership, their success in life, morality, integrity, whatever. Just because they were born white, that's enough. Just because of something that they had zero control over. And isn't that embarrassing for them that the best thing about them is something that was completely out of their control? Isn't that sad for them? I have to believe that that's why they cling to their racism so desperately, because without it, they're literally nothing. Right. They're just the worst and most hateful people who no one would want to be friends with. Without their racism, they would have to admit to themselves that there's nothing special about them. So good for this community for dealing with these people. Even if they weren't racist, they were annoying and nonsensical. They weren't anything that a community would want to be known for or represented by. And they couldn't even get the right permit for their dumb rally. Yet, like, we all just really want them to be in charge of us. We all, nobody wants to be them. You know, none of us are jealous that we're not white. We just like want to be left alone. Get out of here.
Yeah. And they got that damn flag snatched too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's not going to go well at the next plan meeting. All right. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Here's the inside scoop on diners in LA. You want good pastrami sandwich, you go to Factors. You want to see some people in the business, you go to Nate and Al's. You want the best variety? My secret spot's the Nosh. Now here's the inside scoop on politics and news. You go watch the Young Turks live every day at 6 o'clock Eastern.
All right, welcome back. Lot of show left. Always good to be with you. A lot on the agenda left. Let me read some of these beautiful comments. I greatly appreciate everyone who joins the conversation. All right, I may not be able to get to everyone, but I'm thankful. Okay, here we go. Yep. Next TYT reporter says, is getting in a car accident newly a crime? Why did he need to get out of the vehicle after an accident? He could have had a spinal injury. That's right. That's right. Even if he was not in the middle of a seizure, he could have been injured due to the accident itself, which obviously did not even involve another person. Great point, Mangoose. Dragon. The police defunded themselves once again. Surprise. That's right. Yeah. Solidarity Works, AKA Kamayada Vermin. Were the cops charged with anything? Fired? What city was that? So I can avoid it here in California. Hercules. And they were not as of the last update. We will bring you information as it develops. Dana Manning, hello, all you beautiful people. Hello back to you. Yep. Neon Death 07 says, as an epileptic, this is one of my fears. Wow. Spirit X, Black Boss B, give the one indisputable membership. Thank you so much. Black Boss, I appreciate you. And yep, Jug _ Almighty. I've had a stroke before and couldn't imagine something like this happening. This just broke my heart. That's right. And Velvet Goldmine, you're right. It's not fighting. His body is reacting normally to having electricity pumped through it. That's right. 100% correct. All right. Got something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
I'm calling, taking back what the enemy stole. This is my battle cry. I hold my banner high. With the power of the Holy Ghost, we're taking back what the enemy stole. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, hey.
You know what? Let's see that again.
I'm calling, taking back what the enemy stole. This is my battle cry. I hold my banner high. With the power of the Holy Ghost, we're taking back what the enemy stole. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well, hey.
Sir, we're going to make you famous. Put him up for a mass. I believe you have star potential. Karen's star potential, but nonetheless, sir, star potential. Look at that. Taking back what the enemy stole. Now, who are you referring to? Because the only thief that stole anything here in America happens to be, well, your ancestors. Are you an ally? But it says you're MAGA. So I'm kind of confused. Double agent, perhaps? You're really on the outside, just acting like you're on their side. All right, Yasmin.
Well,
Listen,
I love a musical, Doc. All right. I love to sing my songs, but I do it in my house, right? I would never be out in public and intentionally just disrupt the peace of others with some foolishness like this. But there is that audacity. It's the entitlement. These Trump voters, they think that they can do and say whatever they want now because their guy is in office. And I wish we could just go back to the days when people voted on election day and then, for the most part, just went about their lives. You know, they weren't so weird about it. It's like, God, just like get a grip, please, for the sake of the rest of us.
Yeah. I'm looking for his second hit, actually. I hope he does it somewhere else. We will highlight it. Okay. Fox News, Jesse Waters says that the Palestinians are hostile and uneducated. All right, here we go.
This population in Palestine is hostile, it's uneducated, it's even more radicalized than they were at the beginning of this. I mean, now they have no homes at all. They're even more hateful of the Israelis. And their birth rate is explosive. The average Palestinian woman has 5.5 babies. The average Israeli woman has only 2.5 babies. So demographically, they're a threat. Not to mention the national security threat. There is no way you can have these two peoples living side by side.
Put it up full mass. Fox News is hostile and uneducated, sir. Palestinians are attempting to survive an all-out assault on their very existence. On Tuesday's edition of The Five, the show's panelists discussed President Donald Trump's ultimatum for Hamas to release all Israeli hostages by Saturday. Trump vowed chaos could and should consume the Gaza Strip if Hamas did not resume its end of a ceasefire. Quote, Hamas could miscalculate because they want to stretch the negotiation once they give away all hostages. They don't have any more bargaining chips. This is what Waters theorized. He added that Israel called Hamas out on breaking the deal. It would have to risk the lives of hostages and that Hamas had little to lose by going back on the agreement. It's ironic that from the United Nations to the International Criminal Court, they have deemed that actually the government of Israel has basically played a game in their negotiations and developed a consistent protocol of violating agreements that they have made and engaged in actual criminal warfare, criminal war crimes. This is all alleged by not only the UN, but other countries that are part of the UN. But according to Waters, this is a different scenario. Now, he has an issue with the birth rate. I thought you all liked babies. I thought you were pro-life. Oh, I get it. Just not for, okay, I understand. I thought you were for family construct. I thought you were for the babies, children, the elderly maybe. How about this part? Who's at war with the Palestinians? Nobody, at least according to the paperwork. You see, the memos and the paper and all of the activations of war says the Palestinians are at war with nobody. So why are the Palestinians being utilized as a proxy to deal with Hamas? We already know, because that's what this was from the beginning. Now you all are starting to say it out loud. In regards to Waters' claims that Palestinians were uneducated, so let's get to it. Last year it was reported that Gaza's education system, that more than 40% of the schools, 288 in Gaza, are run by the UN Relief and Work Agency, while the rest are either directly operated by Palestinian Authority or privately managed. All of them all of them are currently shut, as more than 85% of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been displaced amid continued Israeli ground and air offensive that has killed more than 25,000 people, including 10,000 children. That's according to the UN data from 2018. Gaza had 737 schools. At least 9,367 teachers work in the 288 UN sanctioned and operated institutions. Up to 280 government schools and 65 UN-run schools have been destroyed or damaged, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Education. 90% of Palestinian Authority schools have been subject to direct or indirect damage. About 29% of school buildings are out of service after being demolished or severely damaged. Save the Children's Director for Palestine, Jason Lee, said in October, quote, attacks on civilian infrastructure, including schools and hospitals where children are seeking refuge, are beyond unconscionable. This war is eroding humanity and is spiraling out of control, end quote. Israel has attacked multiple schools serving as shelters, killing displaced Palestinians. In November 2023, Israeli forces attacked the UN-run Al-Fakari school, killing at least 15 people. A week after that, at least 25 people were killed in Al-Barak, the Al-Barak school. December 2023, several were killed in attacks on Shadia Abu Ghazala school. It is not just schools that have borne the brunt of the Israeli onslaught. Centers of higher education, including universities, have been completely, utterly paralyzed. Palestinian news agency, WAFA, reported that 12 higher education institutions in Gaza have been damaged or completely destroyed, disrupting the entire university education system. Let's go to Al Jazeera's chart. It shows that 4,327 students and 231 teachers and administrators have been killed. Those are just the numbers back in January 2024. We do not have the updated numbers. What is mentioned, birth rates, echoes the idea of the Great Replacement theory. This is when they go full racist. In the Southern Poverty Law Center's article about white nationalists, another deeply related myth is the deceptively titled human biodiversity, or the pseudoscientific belief that different races are genetically different, and that these differences influence propensity toward criminality and other traits. Appeals to the bogus empirical science of human biodiversity are frequently coupled with thinly veiled nods to white racial superiority. In addition to obsession with declining white birth rates, these themes inspire some of the most powerful propaganda that animates and drives the white nationalist movement. You heard Jesse Waters basically repeat the stance of the white nationalist movement. He utilized the page from their indoctrination handbook in order to justify killing children, to justify killing women, grandmothers and grandfathers, non-combatants who happen to be Palestinian. Adherents frequently cite Pat Buchanan's 2001 book, The Death of the West, which argues that these declining white birth rates and an, quote, immigrant invasion would transform the United States into a so-called third world nation by 2050. As the text responsible for their awakening or red pill. White nationalists also frequently cite American Renaissance, a pseudo-academic organization dedicated to spreading the myth of Black criminality, scientific racism, and eugenic theories. His annual conference, a multi-day symposium with a suit and tie dress code, is a typical early stop for new white nationalists. Yasmin, thoughts here? You're on mute, Yasmin.
There you go. The irony of calling people uneducated when their schools have been bombed, also to call people who constantly have to fight for their homes hostile, is completely unhinged. He said they're even more hostile now towards the Israelis because they have even fewer houses than they used to. Does he not hear the words that are coming out of his mouth? Why would they not be hostile towards the people who have bombed all their homes? The baby thing, how many Palestinian babies have been lost in the school and hospital bombings? Now you're going to demonize these people for trying to rebuild their families and for trying to preserve their culture. It's diabolical. It's like so evil. It's so evil. Look, this goes back to ancient wisdom. It delves into political and economic thought and theory and even societal thought and theory. The more stable a society is, the more philosophical they're able to be, right? Philosophical thought, things like social justice and, demographic projections, et cetera. Those are privileged conversations that people like us here in the United States are able to have. Those are privileged conversations that people in Israel are able to have. And the reason why we can worry about things like that is because we're not constantly worried that our home or our families will be bombed into oblivion. And I imagine it's very difficult for Palestinians to think about literally anything else when that is their primary concern. People cannot trouble themselves with things like higher thought and education, even lower levels of education and literacy, when they're constantly worrying about whether or not their most basic human needs will be met when they exist completely in survival mode. And amongst all of the injustices that we've seen in Palestine, that is one that isn't discussed as often. Several generations of children have had their futures stolen from them. They will not be able to recover from this anytime soon. The buildings can be rebuilt. Yes, we don't know what the future of Palestine is going to be. It sounds a little murky right now, judging from the things that President Trump has been saying lately. But the trauma that these people have suffered will be with them for the foreseeable future. It'll be with those people probably long after we are all gone. And I know that sounds dramatic, but 100 years really is not that long in the grand scheme of history and geopolitics. But on a personal level, on a more current level, it is nothing short of devastating. And these people are going to be dealing with this for a long time.
Bonifer said, against stupidity, we are defenseless. And we're seeing that happen now, where Waters to say something this insane, Trump will say something even more insane. Mm-hmm. You attempt to have a logical conversation, but see, when you are actually fighting authentic stupidity, logic simply bounces off of these individuals and you're left in a conversation with a brick wall. We got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only Black salesperson there. He's the only Black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token Black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now, but it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Here's the inside scoop on diners in LA. You want good pastrami sandwich, you go to Factors. You want to see some people in the business, you go to Nate and Al's. You want the best variety? My secret spot's the Nosh. Now here's the inside scoop on politics and news. You go watch the Young Turks live every day at 6 o'clock Eastern.
Welcome. All right, we got a lot of show left. Let me read some of these beautiful comments. Pug McSnortle. Is Jason Waters auditioning for a cabinet position? Yes. Yes. I think that's their secret goal, like their post-broadcast career, is to work for a racist administration. Yeah. Tracy Brown, member for 27 months. What's going on, good people? And what's going on, Tracy? Thank you so much for your dedicated membership and leadership, all right? Love Big 41. How does he know that they're uneducated? Yeah, he's just looking at the fact that all of their schools have been blown up. Instead of referencing the reality of that, he decides to call them uneducated. They're not uneducated. They're highly educated. They care a lot about education. They got a prime minister. They have a minister, of education. And they have educational facilities that have simply been destroyed. Neon Death 07, do it on your yard. That way is public, but not that public. Talking about the Mayor Karen, who's going to take back stolen things. Yep. Neon Death 07. I watched a Palestinian defend his dissertation via video call. Man, I have a PhD student in Lebanon. He's actually a professor in Lebanon as well. Bright. I mean, super bright. Science student. And it looks as if he may have to do the exact same thing. That is becoming, in international education, that is becoming a norm, unfortunately, because of this conflict. All right. And Velvet Goldmine, their schools keep getting bombed. So there you go. All right. Well, hell of a thing. Google decided to remove Black History Month from their Google calendar. Well, put it up for a mass. I got some words. Google's changes to its calendar to remove the beginning of Pride and Black History Month has now sparked reaction. Google has removed cultural observances, including Pride Day, Women's History Month, Black History Month, Holocaust Remembrance Day, Jewish Heritage Month, and Indigenous People Month, and other celebratory events from the Google calendar. So Google is reporting the changes actually began in 2024. A Google spokesperson told Business Insider that, quote, some years ago, its calendar team began manually adding a broader set of cultural moments in a wide number of countries around the world. They then added, quote, we got feedback that some other events and countries were missing, and maintaining hundreds of moments manually and consistently globally wasn't scalable or sustainable. The Google spokesperson said, it's just a coincidence that it happened during the rise of white supremacy. I mean, the fact that it happened right at the rise of white supremacy again in America, big coincidence. It was actually because of this other thing, this globalization thing. We just didn't have the ability to sustain it. Really, Google, you got money, you got people, you're a huge corporate conglomerate, but you just don't have the bandwidth. Spokesperson said that sometimes, at some point, In mid-2024, Google Calendar began showing only public holidays and national observances from outside company timeanddate.com. Google said that users can still manually add, quote, important moments to their personal calendars by customizing which holidays they show or subscribe to. While the removal of Pride and Black History Month by default on Google Calendar appeared to generate some of the strongest reactions from users across the political spectrum, Google also removed other celebratory events, including Teachers' Day. Google Maps renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America for U.S. users on Monday following an executive order Trump issued in January. Apple also changed Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America based on Trump's executive order. The U.S. Geographic Names Information System officially updated the name late Sunday. Microsoft has also made the name change on its Bing Maps. The Associated Press, which provides news around the world to multiple audiences, will refer to the Gulf of Mexico by its original name, which is it has carried for 400 years, while acknowledging the name Gulf of America. The company also recently ended diversity-related hiring goals. In a memo sent last week, Google said it would no longer pursue hiring targets tied to representation. The company also said it would review its DEI programs and initiatives. That likely means simply get rid of them. Quote, as a federal contractor, our teams are also evaluating changes required following recent court decisions and executive orders on this topic. A Google spokesperson previously said in the statement about the search giant's DEI policies. The other companies like Meta have made similar policy changes since Trump's reelection, January. Meta announced it would roll back its diversity programs and no longer have a team focused on DEI. The social media company also changed its content moderation guidelines and replaced fact checkers with community notes. What are you seeing? Well, you're seeing the lack of fortitude, the lack of heart, the lack of care. But why should a corporation have any of that? You're also seeing what happens when corporations are entangled with governmental contracts. One thing all of these entities have in common, on some level, they have contracts with the government. And on all levels, they are connected in the scheme of governmental authority or oversight. And instead of standing up for what is right, they are deciding to let you know who and what's important to them and who is not. So they put you on the chopping block. You, me, we're the ones who made them all they can be, from Google to everything else. Without the people, they are nothing. Government did not make them what they are today. It was because of the consumerism of you and I. They have forgotten that sacred dynamic. You probably should remind them. All right, Yasmin, thoughts?
Yeah, this is exhausting, which is what they all want it to be for a lot of us. What's so exhausting about it is that all of these things, all of this recognition of various groups at the national, federal level have been fought for decades. And now one sensitive white man is undoing all of it. And that aside, it's obviously very upsetting for so many good reasons for so many different groups of people. But aside from the obvious, what is Trump even doing right now? I'll tell you one thing, it is not this. This is not what he's doing. Not really. This is just a thing that he is doing to upset people. He is still gutting our government and dismantling our federal departments and probably selling our personal data to Elon's international friends. We don't know what he's doing with all this data. This whole thing that he's doing, outlawing paper straws, renaming the Gulf of Mexico, it is all just low-hanging rage bait, so please do not fall for it. Also, just a reminder to people, just because these things are no longer on Google, it doesn't mean that they still can't be celebrated or acknowledged. Google is not the gatekeeper here. The people who have fought for these things in the first place will continue to fight for things like equity and diversity and the representation of marginalized groups. They have never stopped, and they're not going to stop just because it's not on Google anymore.
That's right. And in a way, it forces all of us to be reminded that these particular celebrations came from the heart and souls of those who were adversely impacted by the bigoted policies of their day. These bigoted policies have come back. They are roaring as a lion, which simply means it is time to fight again. And Yasmin, I echo your sentiment. They did not bring these to us, these companies, and they will not take them away. But it is time for us to secure and enhance the progress that we have made. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. Stick and stay.
Hey everyone, Mateo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Here's the inside scoop on diners in LA. You want good pastrami sandwich, you go to Factors. You want to see some people in the business, you go to Nate and Al's. You want the best variety? My secret spot's the Nosh. Now here's the inside scoop on politics and news. You go watch the Young Turks live every day at 6 o'clock Eastern.
All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. Got some comments. We'll read as many as I can. Where the scoop says the whole replacement thing is easily debunked when you apply simple logic. Privileged people choose to have less babies because they have their choice. The right took away the choice from the unprivileged, and they are complaining about the unprivileged that they're having too many babies. There's no way to make it make sense. Yeah. Abby_normal_X says, Jesse jealous of XF's new job. Yeah. Jackson 2 times says, erasing history little by little. And that's actually what they're doing. They realize that history is his story. They understand it. They've understood this since day one. And they are writing a different narrative contrary to the truth right in front of us. And that's what getting rid of the books were about inside of school systems. They're no longer teaching about racial equity and inclusion or eliminating the educational dynamic in relationship to slavery. That's what it's about, rewriting it. Okay. All right. Right-wing groups, they got a DEI watch list. They're targeting workers, federal workers. Let's put it up full mass. Now, let me remind you that the federal government is the largest single employer of Black people in the United States of America. Keep that in mind. Right-wing group publishes DEI watch list targeting federal workers. The American Accountability Foundation list included names and photos of more than 50 people, many in programs aimed at improving the health of people of color. The group says the workers named in its DEI bureaucratic watch list supported diversity, criticized Mr. Trump on social media, or made donations to Democrats. Many of the targets are Black workers at health agencies. The list was compiled by the American Accountability Foundation, a small right-wing nonprofit that was founded in 2020 to oppose the Biden administration policies and nominees. Since Mr. Trump's election, the group has stepped up its targeting of specific federal workers, some of them career employees with very little power to defend themselves, that it believes oppose his agenda. The list included dossiers about individual staff members listing what it called their DEI offenses. For example, one 24-year-old CDC staff member was singled out for a social media post she published on her 20th birthday about, quote, the harsh truths of racism, and for reposting a social media item about pain equity, an issue underpinned by research finding bias in how women, Black, and Latino people are treated when in pain. Once again, we're talking about peer-reviewed research. There's more. Another government worker singled out is a cancer biologist at the National Institutes of Health, NIH, who trained at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and who retweeted a post about a Black journalist, noting that she had been tear gassed at a peaceful demonstration near the White House in June of 2020. So President Trump could go through the area for a photo shoot. The foundation previously published watch list of workers at the Defense, Education, and Homeland Security departments. The latest list, published on an affiliated website, includes workers from federal health agencies like the NIH and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Many of them are in programs aimed at improving the health of people of color and other vulnerable Americans. The nonprofit called them woke DEI devotees in the federal government who need to be fired, end quote. Supporters of federal workers said they worried that the workers could be targeted for harassment or violence. Before I continue with this, I want to remind all of those federal workers that the federal government has a duty, has a reasonable responsibility to make sure you are not put in danger, number one. Number two, a reasonable obligation to ensure that they create safety protocols so that you're not placed in unnecessary danger. And if they decide not to adhere to those very basic standards of your employment, you have remedy legally. Just wanted to remind you. Let's put it up. Nonprofits. Nonprofits president Thomas Jones, a longtime conservative activist, said in an interview that he wanted to single out people who had not already been suspended in Mr. Trump's purge of federal diversity offices. Jones said he was not concerned that the post would put workers in danger. The American Accountability Foundation received a $100,000 grant last year from who? The Heritage Foundation, the group behind the project 2025 Blueprint for a Republican Presidency. PBS caves to Trump, oust staffers. Quote, we have closed our DEI office, end quote. The Public Broadcast Service announced Monday evening it had closed its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion office in order to comply with an executive order signed by President Donald Trump. Is anybody going to fight? Quote, in order to best ensure we are in compliance with the president's executive order around diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have closed our DEI office, the person said. The staff members who served in that office are leaving PBS. We will continue to adhere to our mission and values. PBS will continue to reflect all of America and remain a welcoming place for everyone. You're a damn lie. You're a damn lie. And you're lying to everybody. You're not going to do anything but what that weak, cowardly, frail, fragile, white, racist male tells you to do. And if I'm wrong, prove it. Yasmin, thoughts?
Yeah, so we're here, right? This is what we were all warning everybody about for so long, especially here on this network. I understand that this isn't coming from the government. I understand that this is coming from a nonprofit, but the right now not only believes, but is publicly stating that disliking and speaking out against the president is worthy of punishment. The people who think their freedom of speech should excuse their terrible behavior, the same people who think freedom of speech means freedom from consequences, they also think that other people can and should lose their jobs for exercising that same right, as long as they're exercising that right to speak out against the president. Donald Trump is not a king. As much as he would like to be, he is not a king. It is our right and even our responsibility to speak out against our elected officials, even if we voted for them. These people have completely lost the Democratic plot, and they're not even pretending anymore. But these executive orders from Trump, which the Democrats, by the way, should have seen coming a mile away, have really stunted so many people in the country, and they have emboldened so many others. The Democrats should have been better prepared for what was coming. They need to fight harder for the decades, if not centuries, of progress that so many have fought and died for in this country. They can't just let it go away as easily as it is, but they need to start not just fighting harder, but they need to get creative. They need to start fighting more smart, and they need to fight more along the lines the same way that the Republicans are fighting, right? They go after, the Republicans have been waging this war for decades. They have worked very hard to put certain people in certain positions of power to where once they got enough people in strategic positions, they would be able to enact certain things. And that is exactly what we're seeing happening right now. The problem is that back in the 1980s, if anybody blew a whistle on all this, people would have said, "Oh, you're being sensationalist. You're talking crazy. That's not going to happen. Not my problem. It's not going to be a problem." And even in 2015, when Donald Trump started running for president, and whenever he was saying all these crazy things, when he was on that golden escalator, so many people said this is going to be a problem. They all called us crazy and said, "No, it's not going to be a problem. Relax, everybody relax. People on the left are so annoying." Here we are. We're at the point where our literal freedom of speech and our First Amendment of the Constitution is being threatened, has been being threatened, but now they're trying to remove people from positions, from their jobs, removing their ways of earning their livelihood just because they don't like the president. And that is not a democracy. Whatever it is, it's not a democracy.
That's right. And once again, Democrats who have failed to be creative, think outside of the box, stop following his agenda, make up your own, push the needle. It's not about how much progress you can make, but damn it, it's about how much progress is inside of you to make it. If you're not willing to do what no other Democrat has done before, in the face of what no other Republican president has ever done, you're not fit to lead right now. This is an unprecedented territory. You are not up for the fight. And I will echo my sentiment once again for the gatekeepers. Please get out the way. Please move. Please move. Nancy Pelosi, please move. You're not equipped to fight in this political era. You're not. Let the progressives take it over. They are at least able to fight in this political climate. You're too purchased. The corporations got your card. You're too beholding to the status quo. I don't care whose fault it is anymore. You're not fit to lead and effectively combat this type of movement happening against progress in our country. All right. A woman who actually had her brakes fail during a crash has to pay Tesla. Kid you not, put it at full mass. This is an insane story. A woman's parents were injured in a Tesla crash. She ended up having to pay Tesla damages. So here's what happened. Zhang Yazhu was sitting in the passenger seat of her Tesla when she said she heard her father's panicked voice. The brakes don't work. The Associated Press reports they were approaching a red light, so her father swerved around two cars before plowing into an SUV and a sedan and crashing into a large concrete barrier. Zhang gazed at the deflating airbag in front of her. She could never have imagined what was to come. Tesla sued her for defamation, for complaining publicly about the car's brakes. And Tesla won. How? So a Chinese court ordered she would have to pay more than $23,000 in damages and publicly apologize to the trillion-dollar company. Why? Traffic police determined that the crash was her dad's fault because he had not maintained a safe distance, a safe following distance. Zhang, however, insisted that the brakes had malfunctioned, sending the car out of control. She filed a complaint with the local market regulator requesting a refund and compensation. Teslas are among the most computerized cars on the market. So Zhang asked the automaker to turn over the full pre-crash data from the car, hoping it might help explain what went wrong. Tesla, well, they refused. After weeks of stewing, she draped her damaged car with the banner proclaiming, quote, Tesla brake failure in front of the Tesla dealership. She sat on the Tesla's roof and blared her protest through a bullhorn. I like her style. Tesla Model 3 brakes failed, she said. A family of 4 almost died, she said. The next month, she parked her damaged car outside an auto show. It was all to no avail. Tesla refused to turn over the full data, and mediation went absolutely nowhere. Figuring that top Tesla officials would attend an April auto show in Shanghai, she and a friend who had also experienced a problem with their Tesla donned matching t-shirts with the phrase, quote, brakes failed, end quote, and headed for Tesla's booth, determined to buttonhole executives. The automakers officials avoided them, Zhang said, and they couldn't get anyone to hear them out. Zhang clambered on top of a shiny red display model and started yelling too. Things escalated. The moment captured on cell phone videos shot by onlookers went viral on Chinese media. Security guards hauled Zhang out and she was detained for 5 days. And then she found herself on the receiving end of a lawsuit by Tesla, which means they were paying attention the whole time. Tesla said Zhang had deliberately spread false information that damaged the brand and asked for 5 million yuan. That's 684,000 in damages. Zhang is not the only one to find herself at the crosshairs of Tesla, which is led by Elon Musk, the pretend to be genius. Among the richest men in the world and self-described free speech absolutist. Over the last 4 years, Tesla has sued at least 6 car owners in China who had certain vehicle malfunctions, quality complaints, or accidents they claim were caused by mechanical failures. It is not common practice for automakers in China or elsewhere to sue their customers. But Tesla has pioneered an aggressive legal strategy and leveraged the patronage of powerful leaders in China's ruling Communist Party to silence critics, reap financial rewards, and limit its accountability. Same thing Elon is doing in America. AP found that Tesla won nearly 90% of the civil cases over safety, quality, or contract disputes brought by customers. That is an impossible freaking average of victory. Impossible. Back in court as a defendant, Zhang was unable to prove that the brakes on her Tesla had indeed failed. In a closed trial, a Shanghai court ruled in May 2024 that Zhang's public complaints went beyond what magistrates consider reasonable factual criticism, or ordered her to publicly apologize and pay $23,000 to cover damages and legal costs of the world's most valuable car company. Back in the US, Musk has now been awarded millions in new government contracts, even as I call it, Dodge torches other according to elite filing. So they're taking away programs, slashing budgets, taking money out of good programs to help everyday people, but he's getting billions in our taxpayer money. SpaceX, according to policy analyst Will Stansel, who obtained a filing purportedly from a federal grant database showing that SpaceX was awarded a $38.8 million contract from NASA this week. That contract is for research and development in the physical engineering and life sciences. And NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center is listed as the contracting office on file. There you have it. You can look to what happened in China to understand what's happening here. Yes, thoughts?
Yeah, Tesla doesn't need the money here. They need the PR. Tesla sales are down all over the world. Ever since Trump was inaugurated, since Elon basically took over our government, Tesla sales have plunged. I think it was 63% in France, 60% in Germany. They're down in China, in Scandinavia, here in the US. And apart from the fact that the new Cybertruck has been reported to allegedly be more dangerous than the infamous Ford Pinto, Tesla has a huge optics problem. And this is what happens when corporations and brands are so closely tied to one personality. Yep. As soon as that personality falters in the public eye, the company and the brand that have been inextricably tied to that personality also falters. So Elon can and does do whatever he wants to do, as is his right as the richest man in the world, I guess. The people who actually run his companies will likely suffer for it too, though. And they can't as easily afford to lose their livelihoods just because of whatever it is that Elon Musk chooses to do today.
Yep, and you're right about the profit-loss dynamic. The reality is Tesla's, those cars have never made a profit, even though the stock has been moderately successful at times. Look at the actual ratio of consumers to production. He's not running a profitable company. Now it's even worse. Yaz, we appreciate all that you do. Thank you for your brilliant analysis. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at YazK, at YAZZZZK, 5 Z's. And also you can find me over on the Rebel HQ YouTube channel. I do 4 videos a week. I'm supposed to do 4 videos a week. I missed yesterday, but usually 4 a week.
We'll forgive the one.
I always have to confess whenever I don't do what I'm supposed to do.
Right, that's right. That keeps you honest. We appreciate you so much. All right, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.